In this episode, we welcome Jimmy Yang, Managing Director and Canada Health Lead at Accenture. We're diving into a shift that sounds obvious to everyone, but proves incredibly complex in reality, moving from treatment to prevention. Thank you for listening. Jimmy Yang, hi. Thank you
Bonjour,
for joining
how
us.
Are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. We saw you last year, so good to see you again.
So second time in a row on the podcast. This is a first. Jimmy, you are Managing Director and Canada Health Lead at Accenture. Today we're talking about a shift that everyone agrees on in theory, but that remains incredibly complex in practice, moving from treatment to prevention. We're going to talk AI.
Okay.
And predictive analytics, because we believe, and with reason, that they are game changers for prevention. Yet a lot of organizations still struggle to get the basics right. From your perspective, what foundations need to be in place before predictive tools can truly deliver on their promises?
Yeah, and it's great to be back, and great to be back in Montreal. It's a big question. It's one that all of us should be asking and trying to figure out. In terms of the foundations, there's a couple things that come to mind. So one is, our resource here will be data from this perspective in terms of AI and prevention. So we need trusted, connected data that we can rely on. It has to be representative, it has to be longitudinal, it has to be accessible, it has to be in a format that can interface with a number of different systems. The reason that trusted connected data is important is because in most of the regions across Canada in our health system, it's fairly fragmented. A lot of our data, our information sits in silos: primary care, community care, your Fitbit, my Apple Watch, pharmacy information, lab data.
So they don't speak to each other.
They don't speak to one another. So how do we get that trusted, connected data? That's going to take a while. There's many provinces, including Quebec, that are trying to solve for that today. That's foundation element number one. Number two is we have to move to focus on workflows and not dashboards. We've really raced to analytics, and what we get now is a little bit of like analytics theater. So lots of reporting and dashboards. But what we've lost is we're not really focused on supporting the human being, so either the clinician or the patient or the caregiver in that interaction, which is a healthcare visit.
Okay.
So number two for foundation is really just thinking about workflow. So if you get an insight in a hospital and you're providing care, the insight on its own doesn't do anything. The insight with instructions on how do I intervene, what is my next best action, how do I communicate this to the patient or their family is critical.
So there's no plan of action, really?
Correct, right?
Okay.
Like information in and of itself is not that helpful. Information that's built into the workflow is critical. And I think the third part of the foundation is just people, right? So if we're thinking about prevention, and you and I are talking about a future where there's trusted, connected data, we're thinking about workflows, not just dashboards, then for prevention, we're thinking about primary care, home care, digital care, virtual care, people in pharmacies that are 5 minutes from your house.
Yeah.
Do we have enough of those people, and are they ready for this foundation?
That's
so I'd say those
question,
three are critical.
And what's one mistake you see organizations make when they jump too quickly into AI, we're going to say,
I would say it's not quite a mistake, because AI and the technology itself is moving so quickly. We'd be hard pressed to find anyone in any sector, let alone health, that says, I know exactly what tomorrow is going to look like. Mm-hmm. But I have the privilege of working across the country and working with global counterparts. And one pattern that I see is that we're thinking about AI as a mandate, not really as an enabler. So we're thinking about, like, where can we put AI next?
It needs to be everywhere.
It needs to be everywhere, but I think I'll give you a quick story. So I was meeting with a hospital CEO in Canada, and she was talking about the number of AI initiatives and projects that are underway across the healthcare campus. And she said we have over 150 AI initiatives and pilots that are happening as we speak.
That's crazy.
And I asked a little bit of a cheeky question, which was, how are all of those AI projects advancing the mission and the mandate of the organization for patients
That's
and
a
families?
fair question.
Yeah. And she was honest. She said, actually, I don't know. Right?
Okay.
And so what we have here is a lot of experimentation that's disaggregated, very heterogeneous, and it's not being guided by mission and vision. So the mistake that people, I think, are making, to your question, is they're trying AI in siloed ways, not in uniform ways. And some of the work that people are doing now is they're saying, okay, so we've got 100, 150, 300 AI projects that are happening. It's exciting, it's energizing, it's a bit wild. We're not sure how to scale it. We're not sure how we're going to fund it. What we're seeing is a lot of leaders saying pause. Pause on all the speed. And they're getting back to the basics and just getting back to a very basic toolkit. So what we're seeing and what we're advising and working with clients on is, one, make sure that you have integrated governance. You don't throw AI over to the CIO or the chief data officer and hope for the best.
No.
You need to have privacy, clinical, administration, operations, legal, in an integrated way, governing how you're going to reach business outcomes using AI as an enabler. AI is not the show.
Yep.
The second one is just around responsible AI. So as an organization, are we ensuring that the data is secure and private? Are we monitoring for bias? And are we protecting the interests of our constituents? That's number two. And then the third one's almost the most critical one, and it's very basic, which is prioritization and some type of a structure that allows the organization to say, have we realized value for all these AI investments? So many organizations are saying, let's set up a small, light touch value realization office where we sit down, integrated governance table, responsible AI framework in place. And we're saying, when people come to us with ideas, Christine, saying we should try this, it now comes and it's measured against criteria that's
There's
important for the organization.
Yes.
Advances the mission and the vision and the mandate of the organization. It's prioritized, and then it's actually measured for value to the organization. So, lots of exciting things happening, but many organizations are saying, let's do this right, and let's get back to the basics.
So AI is one thing, funding is another. If we go back to shifting from treatment to prevention, it's not just about technology. It's about fundamentally rethinking how care is delivered and funded. So what needs to change in our current models to truly make prevention a priority?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer, but I'll try.
I know you can.
So if we just I'm a fan of history. So if we just look at the history of how healthcare is funded, it gives us a very obvious clue and a hint as to how we might go about it. So if you think about the Canadian Institute for Health Information, CIHI, they look at many different data factors, but one of which is how we spend money provincially. So what does Quebec spend in healthcare, Ontario, British Columbia, Nova Scotia, etc.? When you look at all of them, generally speaking, about 50 to 55% of every dollar spent in a province for healthcare is spent on hospitals, so institutional care, physician services and remuneration, and medications. Your question on how do we move to prevention and promotion, well, those are big slices of the pie that I just named. When you look at prevention and promotion, it's 5 to 6% of that pie. If you look at home and community care, it's somewhere between 4 and 8% depending on the province. So right now, our system is funding for activity, urgent care, reactive care, generally speaking in hospitals and acute care institutions. I think what we have to be able to see a few years out is that pie chart is starting to change. If we can talk about prevention and promotion till the end of eternity, but if those pie charts don't change and we're not seeing more investment in prevention promotion, then we have a challenge on our hands. I think the other challenge that we have is no one is accountable in any province or region for prevention.
Really?
Yeah, so we don't have a common table. So we need shared accountability and governance that focuses on prevention, that says that how do we invest in resources, capability, programs, digital technology, AI, so that Christine or Christine's family member has more information at their fingertips. Your doctor has more information.
Yes.
Yeah, so that we can forecast and predict a little bit more effectively.
And if we jump ahead like 5-10 years from now, what does a truly prevention first healthcare system looks like to you?
Yeah, let's just start with data and the data foundation question you started with. 5 to 10 years out, across most jurisdictions in Canada, we now have longitudinal data accessible, and we can start to look for patterns for Canadians and start to forecast and predict when there may be health challenges ahead so that we can plan for that person more appropriately. So that's one. The data is more rich, it's connected, it's trusted, and we can actually get into prediction, forecasting, planning ahead, eating properly. That's number one. Number two is like we start to think about accountability and governance, right? We talked about it just briefly, but we don't have anyone who's accountable for prevention. We're going to have to think about some structures within government that says, how do we bring people to a common table to plan for a person?
Yep.
And how do we change incentives and funding models to do that? I think the third one is like if you think about anywhere in Canada, especially in rural areas, a lot of people don't have options. If you live in downtown Montreal versus in rural Quebec, there's less resources available, there's less coverage. So your natural inclination, your safety net, is to go to the hospital, to go to emergency departments. So 5 to 10 years out, someone from Chicoutimi, who lives just outside an urban area, has more information at their fingertips where they can make better choices around services that are available to them. The pandemic, the silver lining of the pandemic was it really introduced high volumes of virtual care. So if we can almost see home-based care, digital and virtual care, and community care as the front door for patients, and hospitals not as the front door and more as of the safety net, the backing of the system, I think some of those elements would be pretty exciting.
Okay, so just answer this one yes or no. If we say 5 to 10 years, is this doable? Is this realistic? Yes or no?
Yes, I'm a glass half full person, so yes. There's a lot of great leaders across our system that are working on the very things that we've spoken about, and I'm optimistic.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you.